Hey, good evening. Already up to the weekend here, Friday, March 10th, and we've got a little bit of thunderstorm activity where we're at. And that's still going on even right now. So a little bit of thunder for you. I know some of you are way up north dealing with snow and cold winds, but we are getting the tropical air mass down here big time and a little bit of instability. So we're going to go over a little bit of that later. Let's check out the weather maps right now. You can probably hear some of that rain going in the background. Okay, let me switch over back to our temperatures, and there we go. Looking at lots of 70s and 80s across Texas. And we've just got this never-ending run of hot weather here in Texas, low to mid-80s there. Cooler temperatures definitely found up north, 30s and 40s there in Indiana. We get up to teens where Fred is up there, and even some below zero readings way up north. And so we've still got this northwesterly flow pattern. We can see that coming in. There's a big ridge out to the west covering the west coast. We've got kind of a long wave trough over the west coast like that, broken up into some smaller scale waves like this. And so the result that we get is a jet coming down from the northwest from about Seattle down to Chicago. And that's fairly good at bringing some cold air southeast into the northeast U.S., but not so good at carrying that cold air into the southern and southeast U.S. Satellite pattern looking like this, and you can see lots of warm air at the beginning right there over Arizona. And this is infrared imagery, so it's directly measuring the temperature of the surface and of cloud tops. And this purple here probably signifies temperatures of 90 to 100 degrees, maybe closer to 90. But there we go. You can see a little bit of the tropical air across Texas, some of the higher debris cloud from showers and thunderstorms in that area. And let's look at our thermal analysis real quick. You can see a lot of banding there, so this is definitely a springtime pattern. See that right there? And the front, polar front, probably coming like this from the Atlantic out to northern Florida, but we kind of lose it through Texas. I can see a little bit of troughing in that area, but it's kind of hard to pick out. What we can do is we can go to the 1,000 through 850 thickness. Now you see that kind of hardens in a little bit. So there we go. So this is probably the situation we're looking at this evening, and that arcs back to the northwest into the Rocky Mountain region. So there's probably a little bit of blocking by the front range of the Rockies right there. Kind of a shallow air mass in that part of the U.S. But there's a lot of shower activity along the coast, and let me switch over to SPC, and then we'll take a look at chat, see what's going on here. Okay, let's see. Who do we got? Andrew and Sue. First one's checking in there. Mark and Brian Harp is here. Michael Burrell. Fun with Tech is here. Steve Loves God is here. Asking for prediction for Tuesday's storm over Philadelphia. Yeah, we'll cover that towards the end of the weathercast. Michael Burrell says 4 a.m. hail in Atlanta was a rude awakening. You can imagine. Brett Dean. Snow squalls in Grapple. Wow. Southern Jersey, 29 degrees. That's just amazing. Tom J. says, hope you liked my cat, Blackberry, watching Tim last night. Yeah, I appreciate the use of that time-lapse and the photo, too. That was great. Great way to start the webcast. Ryan Toomey's is here. And Ahmed, do I have that right? I didn't quite get the spelling right, but yeah, we're going to look at a little bit of weather in the Middle East there. Kevin McKinney checking in. Brett Dean, Tom J. Oh yeah, Tom J down in Las Cruces. What am I saying? Yeah, you supplied the webcast last night. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit brain dead here. Brett Dean says the ground has pretty much thawed out and lots of cooling. All right, so let's check out the weather. We can see this kind of backdoor front here in Texas. See that easterly flow coming in here? So that's one reason we're getting a little bit of this thunderstorm activity here in Texas. So there's where the front is. Kind of broken up into a wave here. So a little bit of baroclinicity there, maybe a little bit of a new front possibly developing here in North Texas. And this is the warm front sector of that wave right there. Let's see if we can see that on the surface analysis. Here we've got the current data. And we always go by temperature when we can. So in other words, when we go southwest to northeast, we can see we've got 71, 73. Okay, now we're cooling off 71, 71, 64, 59. So that's supported by the wind field. So we can put that front just like that. And that can be drawn way out to West Texas near El Dorado Junction, Ozona. And do we have a closed low in this area? Possibly. The 1018 millibar line, it's going to be looking like that right there. So that's 1018. And then the 1020 line is going to look something like this here. So there's 1020. And then the lower part of that, that's going to be way off to the south there. Okay. So that's what's responsible for the storms here in Texas, that little wave going there, and also the moist advection in advance of that right there. So you see the mid-60s dew point streaming north. All right, let's check out some soundings. Of course, we're going to look at Texas a little bit. Fort Worth sounding, we know that they're a little bit north of the front. Not getting any valid data from there, so I'm going to switch over to UCAR, and there we go. So we can see maybe a little bit of a frontal inversion there in the lowest 1,000 to 1,500. And then above that, we're getting kind of like a little bit of an easterly flow, which is kind of unusual for this time of year. Let's check out other places. Shreveport. If you all have any suggestions of any soundings you want to look at, let me know. And there you can see there at Shreveport a little bit of a shallow layer of southeast winds. Top of that frontal inversion kind of right in here. So below that there's the cool backdoor front air mass, and above that the predominant flow there is out of the southwest. And let's look down into the source region of the air, maybe Corpus Christi. There we go, kind of like a straight east-southeast flow right there. Very tropical looking from the surface up to the top of the troposphere. And by tropical, we mean relative humidity is very high through that layer. And average mixing ratios in here looks like about 12 grams per kilogram. So that's kind of how we quantify the moisture feeding up into this part of Texas. Okay, not really any suggestions on soundings. Lincoln. Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at Lincoln. But before we go up there, we do want to kind of relate that to the surface patterns. So we see Lincoln is going to be up here. Fronts are off to the east, so we're going to expect to find kind of a moderately deep cold air mass there, and maybe some westerly flow above that. So what do we have there? Let's go to Omaha nearby, and there we go. Frontal inversion, very easy to find there at 700 millibars or 10,000 feet. Below that we can see the air mass has been undergoing some modification there. And there's the westerly flow above that. And then below that, we've got kind of like westerly flow transitioning to easterly flow in the lowest 5,000. Dynamics. Let's check out the dynamics. Let me grab a drink here. Okay, what we can see here are large waves on the chart. So there's a large ridge, large trough here, but embedded in that are some very small scale waves. We call these short waves. So there's one short wave right there, maybe a couple weak ones going through the flow right there, maybe another weak wave right there. Not so many right now, but we can see later during the week, by Saturday, tomorrow, there's a large wave right there, major wave out here on the Pacific coast. Then going into Sunday and Monday, there's another wave coming down south. So these are things that we look for. The waves themselves help to destabilize the column in the springtime. That can help remove the cap, the lift out ahead of these waves. That's very important. And not only does it remove the cap, but it cools the upper part of the atmosphere, so we get more of a cold over warm situation, very steep lapse rates, and that really increases the cape. So let's see, over the next week, going into the middle of next week, continued ridging out to the west. And does California get any rain? Looks like kind of a break there up until maybe Sunday the 19th, the 21st, and then a major wave coming through there on the 23rd. And I seem to recall the GFS yesterday, it was building a very deep trough in this region. I think it's backed off on that just a little bit, getting more of a moderation of that trough and more westerly winds in Texas here on the 24th. Okay, we were going to take a quick look at weather out in the Middle East. Let's do that. There's a lot to learn by looking at weather around the world. And one good way to start with this is to look at the general circulation. So we know that around Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Sudan, they're at about 25 to 30 degrees north. And we kind of relate this to the global circulation here. So around the equator, we've got a lot of lift due to very strong heating in this area, and that forms the Hadley cell as air moves north and south aloft and then descends. And this descending area is very significant because that creates subsidence and lots of dry air, lots of warm air. And over continental regions like the Middle East, where you have a lot of landmass, you realize much of that dry and warm air. But here around the Gulf Coast region where we're at in Texas, there's a lot more moisture involved, so we get a little bit more buoyancy to the air and not so much of this very hot temperature regime. So much of this is going to be under the influence of the subtropical high. But this time of the year, we see a little bit of the polar front coming south. So let's see. Let's take a look at the charts for that area right now. This is the 500 millibar heights and vorticity, and we see a little bit of a trough coming through Egypt right there. And Saudi Arabia, the Gulf Coast themselves, the Gulf states themselves, under this ridge here, and the polar front jet kind of like this. So as you might expect, we would probably see maybe a frontal system at the surface kind of like that. So it looks like a little bit of weather for that part of the country this time of year, or that part of the region. And this is a very interesting site I like looking at. This is called weatherspark.com. They've got some neat graphs. And I pulled up the weather for Riyadh. And we can see the hottest time of the year is August. 110 degrees for highs and 82 for lows. But more importantly, the precipitation. Let's check that out. We can see that the precipitation peak is around April 10th. So we're getting close to that date. We're getting close to their rainy season. And we can see the thunderstorms also peak in that area around April 10th. But after May or June, the subtropical ridge builds in and we get subsidence working on that area. And up aloft to 200 millibars. Look at that, 150 knot winds. So very potent dynamics for this time of year. So let's take a quick look at the forecast over the next few days for that part of the world. This is going to be the current map, and yeah, we do kind of show that front in place. Something like that. So got a warm front right there over Iraq, around Baghdad down to the Basra area, and then a cold front right around here. I guess that's going to be Medina down to northern Sudan. And back behind it, cold air advection coming in from the northwest right there. So what are we looking at over the next couple of days? Looks like that cold air makes a very slow advance eastward. Riyadh is way out here, so maybe not quite pushing that far east. Looks like the bulk of this energy heads up towards Iran here. Then the front kind of fizzles out and not much going on. Looks like maybe it kind of redevelops here around Monday or Tuesday. A little bit of shower activity with that. Then quiets down, and then I saw when I went through these charts earlier that things redeveloped pretty well here around the 20th. So yeah, like I said, we're kind of getting into that rainy season. And up in Turkey here, just enough cold air to get some snow going in those higher elevations here. So yeah, that's what's going on there. And maybe when we get up to the 20th or 21st, if we can find any thunderstorms in that part of the world. Yeah, that right there. I'll try to bring that up because that will be very interesting to look at. Okay, heading back to the U.S., let's check this out. I guess it's probably about time to get into the forecast, so let's do that. You can still hear those thunderstorms going. Okay, so we know that there's a front off to the south, and let's see what happens over the next few days. Looks like the front kind of stagnates here, maybe a little bit of reinforcement from the northeast. See those pressures coming up in this area. 1042 millibar high developing in Manitoba here. And then we're going to watch this Pacific system moving southeast down that frontal boundary. So we're probably looking at something like this here. And that's heading down along that frontal zone. And this one looks like it's heading more towards the Ohio River Valley. We see some pretty good isotropic lift here developing the snow. And so we've probably got a shot of snow there in Indiana around the 13th or 14th. So we'll check back in tomorrow and see what the models show for that. But looks like we get high pressure building in, covering much of the central U.S. around midweek. Warm air advection picks back up in Texas. Then we get another system coming in from the northwest here. So rain chances go up for Oklahoma, North Texas, and Kansas around the 17th. And this will probably be our next shot at storms here in this part of the country. So this, when we have a easterly flow, a very strong easterly component, that's what really helps bring the storm-relative helicities together. So we're going to be watching this area here, Tennessee, northeast Arkansas, and southeast Missouri on next Friday evening. This is Saturday at 0Z, so this is Friday evening. So right there, we're going to keep an eye on that. If we have any significant severe weather outbreaks, I will run a special webcast and we'll follow that and see what happens. So that's going to move out to the East Coast and be out of the picture for the central U.S. And I did have that request for what's going on in Philadelphia. Let me check that out. That's one of the problems doing these webcasts. There's so many areas that we have to cover. Here we go. This is going to be Monday morning. So we can see the system here off the Florida coast. Just kind of a weak baroclinic zone. But looks like we get some upper air support, and that comes together. Pressures fall near the center, and that works its way up the coast. And that'll come into the picture big time by Tuesday morning. So we've got the snow line basically from the D.C. area up to just... good grief. From the D.C. area right around Philadelphia and up to Long Island. And that goes right up the coast. But we have to keep in mind that the main baroclinic area is a little bit offshore here. So the system is already starting to decay a little bit, but not before we get some pretty good snowfall from around Philadelphia up to upstate New York and into the Boston area. And there goes the old decaying low up into the New England area. Cold air advection wrapping around in the backside. And that's it until the next system comes in. That'll affect mainly Virginia. Okay, that's about all I got for the forecast there. Let me take a quick look at chat, see what's going on. Let's see, it's going to be hard to read all this, but let me see what I can find. All right, music to my ears from Charles Skelly. Yeah, excellent. Next Friday, could be in the basement during his webcast. Yeah, well, we'll try to be there and try to keep tabs on what's going on. And Brett Dean, 18 minutes from Philadelphia, probably rain. Well, a lot could change. You know, this is still about 72 to 84 hours out. And we're only looking at the GFS here. The NAM is probably going to handle this system a lot better. So things could definitely change as we get into early next week, and we'll cover some of that as next week gets closer. Anyway, that's about all I got for this webcast. Appreciate you watching, and hope you'll join tomorrow. Thanks.